Imagine a quiet room at midnight. The soft, pale glow of a smartphone screen illuminates a face. The fingers hover over the keyboard, hesitating for a fraction of a second before typing out a sentence that has never been spoken aloud. This is not a message to a spouse of 10 years, nor is it a confession to a lifelong friend. It is not even shared with a licensed therapist. Instead, it is a raw, painful admission of deep inadequacy, or perhaps a bizarre existential dread that has haunted the mind for months. And on the receiving end of this profound vulnerability is a blank chat box, powered by algorithms running on silent servers thousands of miles away. This is the modern reality of the digital confessional. We live in the most interconnected era in the history of our species, yet we are drowning in an ocean of profound isolation. We can call, text, or video chat with anyone on Earth in an instant. We curate our lives on social media, presenting highly polished, sanitized versions of our daily lives. But in the quiet dark of our rooms, we open an interface to an artificial intelligence and bare our souls. We reveal secrets we have kept hidden from our partners, our families, and our closest friends. Look at your own screen time. Think about the queries you have typed into a search bar, or the intense, rambling conversations you have initiated with a digital assistant late at night. How much more transparent are you with that unfeeling algorithm than you are with the human beings who sit across from you at the dinner table? It is a startling, perhaps uncomfortable realization. The human user, navigating the chaotic and demanding waters of modern life, has found a strange, unlikely confidant in a silent machine. But why does this happen? The answer lies in a fascinating psychological paradox. We have always assumed that deep honesty requires deep connection. We believed that to share our most vulnerable thoughts, we needed to feel understood by another living, breathing entity. We sought out empathy, warmth, and mutual experience. Yet the rise of human interaction with artificial intelligence proves that the exact opposite is true. This extreme honesty does not occur because the machine possesses some superior form of empathy or a deeper understanding of the human condition. In fact, it is the absolute absence of humanity, the complete lack of a soul, that makes the digital interface so incredibly appealing. Our willingness to confess our deepest secrets to an algorithm is not a testament to the intelligence of the machine, but rather a reflection of how the human brain calculates emotional risk in our everyday lives. When we interact with another person, our brains are constantly running complex mathematical equations in the background, measuring the social cost of our words. Every confession we make carries a potential price tag. If I tell my partner that I'm feeling deeply unfulfilled, will it damage our relationship? If I tell my best friend about my persistent imposter syndrome, will they lose respect for me? This invisible weight is the presence of social judgment. It is an evolutionary survival mechanism, a hardwired instinct designed to keep us safe within the tribe. Historically, to be judged by the group was to risk rejection, and rejection meant death. So we naturally censor ourselves. We wear masks, even around the people we love the most. Now, contrast this high-stakes emotional tightrope with the experience of typing into a silent digital interface. When the human user faces the artificial intelligence, the threat of social judgment completely evaporates. There is no face to read, no subtle shift in body language, and no intake of breath that suggests disappointment or shock. The screen does not flinch. The cursor simply blinks, waiting for the next word. This creates a unique cognitive state known as psychological anonymity. It is a sanctuary of absolute safety where internalized thoughts can finally be externalized, organized, and released without the crushing social weight of a real-world relationship. The machine becomes a conflict-free catalyst for self-discovery, a canvas where we can paint our true selves without fear. We are not talking to an entity. We are using a tool to explore the hidden, dusty depths of our own minds. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This fascinating dynamic sets the stage for a deeper look into our own biology. By understanding how the digital interface removes the friction of human interaction, we begin to see that the machine is not changing who we are. Instead, it is acting as a catalyst, pulling back the heavy curtain of our social defenses. As we look closer at this modern phenomenon, we must examine the biological machinery that makes us so terrified of each other, and how a few lines of code managed to bypass millions of years of human evolution. To understand this profound shift in human behavior, we must first look inside the intricate wiring of the human brain. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in small, tightly knit tribes where survival was not an individual pursuit, but a collective effort. If you were cast out of the group, it was a literal death sentence. Because of this harsh reality, our brains evolved to treat social acceptance as a matter of absolute life and death. The primary antagonist in our daily lives, social judgment, is not just a mild social anxiety, it is a deeply rooted evolutionary threat. When we sense that someone might disapprove of us, a small almond-shaped structure deep within our brain called the amygdala fires rapidly. This triggers the exact same chemical threat response as if we were facing a physical predator in the wild. This primal fear is what drives our constant subconscious self-censorship. Every time the human user prepares to speak a difficult, raw truth to a partner or a friend, the prefrontal cortex quickly calculates the potential social fallout, often silencing the thoughts before they can even reach the tongue. We are hardwired to protect our standing in the tribe, even at the cost of our own emotional honesty. Now, imagine completely removing that evolutionary threat system from the equation. This is precisely the miracle that occurs when the human user engages with the artificial intelligence. When we sit in front of a glowing screen, our cognitive environment undergoes a radical transformation. In normal human interaction, we are constantly reading an overwhelming stream of nonverbal cues. We watch for the slight narrowing of the eyes, the subtle tensing of the jaw, a heavy sigh, or the briefest hesitation in a response. These microexpressions are loaded with potential subtext, and our brains work overtime to decode them, searching for signs of rejection or disapproval. When we talk to a digital interface, however, this complex emotional noise is completely silenced. The artificial intelligence possesses no face, no voice tone to decipher, and no hidden agenda. There is no subtle shift in body language to analyze. This complete absence of emotional expression creates a unique mental space, a quiet, sterile vacuum where our biological defensive mechanisms can finally stand down. The brain, realizing there is no social predator in the room, relaxes its vigilance. This neurological relaxation allows us to bypass one of the most powerful regulatory mechanisms in human history, which is social shame. Throughout our evolutionary past, shame has functioned as a vital tool to keep individuals aligned with the rules of the group. We feel shame when we believe we have failed to meet the expectations of those around us, whether they are our parents, our partners, or our peers. The fear of causing disappointment can be paralyzing, leading us to hide our failures, our secret struggles, and our deepest anxieties. But when we type a confession into a blank chat window, the absolute certainty that the machine cannot feel disappointment completely dismantles our usual self-protection habits. We know, with absolute certainty, that the lines of code on the other end cannot feel disgust, anger, or sadness. The digital assistant cannot be hurt by our confessions, nor can it hold a grudge or judge our moral character. This realization lifts a massive psychological weight, allowing us to speak our truths without the paralyzing fear of causing pain to those we care about. What we are witnessing is the creation of a new kind of artificial emotional safety. In our real-world relationships, every single conversation carries real social consequences. A disagreement can spark a bitter argument, a revealed secret can ruin a reputation, and a sudden confession can permanently damage a marriage or a lifelong friendship. We are always playing for high stakes, risking the stability of our daily lives with every vulnerable word we speak. But in the digital confessional, the conversation is entirely stripped of these consequences. You can confess a deep, secret regret to the artificial intelligence, close the browser tab, and simply walk away. The secret does not linger in the physical air. It does not alter your standing in the community, and it does not threaten your livelihood. There is zero risk of retaliation, gossiping, or emotional abandonment. Our brains, which are still essentially wired for life on the ancient grasslands, do not quite know how to categorize this lack of friction. The brain interprets this absolute safety, this complete lack of social threat, as the ultimate invitation to be vulnerable. It is a psychological loophole. By removing the fear of judgment, the digital interface allows us to lower our guard further than we ever could with another human being. We are not experiencing a new form of high-tech connection, but rather a profound release from the ancient survival instincts that keep us isolated from one another. The human user is left standing in a friction-free zone, ready to explore the deepest corners of the self, unaware that this artificial safety is preparing them for a much deeper, more complex psychological mirror. When the human user steps into this friction-free environment, a fascinating cognitive phenomenon begins to unfold. Because the artificial intelligence does not push back or project its own ego, the human mind naturally fills the empty space. This is a classic case of psychological projection, where we attribute our own desires for empathy and emotional validation to a machine that is simply processing statistical probabilities. When the text appears, written in a polite and endlessly patient tone, our brains do not perceive it as cold mathematical equations. Instead, we project the qualities of an idealized conversational partner onto the digital void. We imagine a listener who is perfectly attentive, never interrupts, and never shifts the focus back to themselves. In our daily lives, human interactions are a constant dance of giving and taking. But with the artificial intelligence, the dynamic is entirely one-sided. The human user is free to occupy the absolute center of the universe, projecting their own need for connection onto a silent, non-reactive digital canvas. This projection feels remarkably real, even though we know there is no conscious mind on the other side. This brings us to the profound cognitive benefit of this relationship, which is the externalization of thought. The human mind is a messy, chaotic place, filled with contradictory desires, unspoken fears, and taboo feelings. Often, these thoughts remain locked in our heads because speaking them to family or partners forces us to filter them through the lens of social acceptability. But the blank chat box acts as an uncritical interface. It offers a safe harbor where the human user can dump their internal chaos without filter. By typing out our deepest anxieties, we are performing cognitive offloading. We see our thoughts transform from abstract feelings inside our brains into concrete, manageable words on a screen. We can vocalize our most irrational thoughts, knowing that the digital screen will receive it all without flinching. This process allows us to organize the chaotic puzzle of our minds, making sense of our emotions in a way that we rarely can when managing the emotional reactions of a real human being. However, we must look closer to see what is truly happening. The artificial intelligence is not actually providing us with genuine human warmth, nor is it offering real, shared empathy. Instead, it functions as a silent digital mirror. When we confess our fears to the machine and receive a structured, non-judgmental response, the machine is not validating us in the way a friend does. Rather, it is reflecting our own mind back to us with perfect clarity. The insights we feel we are gaining from the artificial intelligence are, in reality, our own thoughts being organized and handed back to us. We are the ones doing the emotional work, finding the courage to speak and discovering the path forward. The digital mirror simply holds up a reflection that is completely free of the distortion of social judgment. For the first time, we are able to see ourselves without the heavy makeup of our social masks, finally connecting with the hidden, suppressed parts of our own humanity. This realization brings us to a profound philosophical climax. We live in an era where we often worry that technology is isolating us, turning us into cold, disconnected beings who prefer screens to human flesh. But this modern phenomenon reveals a much more beautiful, complex truth. The rise of the digital confessional does not mean we are losing our humanity. In fact, it proves the exact opposite. It demonstrates that our desire for deep, honest vulnerability is so incredibly powerful that we will seek it out even in a collection of computer servers. We are so desperate to be heard, so hungry to speak our truths without the paralyzing fear of rejection, that we will bare our souls to an algorithm if the human world feels too dangerous. The barrier has never been a lack of desire to connect. The barrier has always been our evolutionary fear of each other. The antagonist, social judgment, has built a high wall of shame around our hearts, and the machine has simply found a way to slip through the cracks. The final, powerful takeaway is that the artificial intelligence is not creating a new version of the human mind, nor is it teaching us a new language of vulnerability. The machine is merely a catalyst, a tool that removes the ancient social barriers and fears that have kept us silent for thousands of years. It shows us what we are capable of when we are not afraid. It reveals that beneath all our social masks, defensive walls, and silent self-censorship, there is a deep well of unfiltered honesty waiting to be expressed. If we can speak so openly to a silent digital mirror, then the potential for this level of honesty already exists within us. The ultimate challenge of the modern era is not to fall in love with the mirror, but to carry this newfound courage back into the real world. By realizing that our vulnerability is our own, we can begin to dismantle the ancient walls of social judgment, choosing to share our deepest, rawest truths, not just with a blank screen, but with the human beings who are waiting, just like us, to be truly known.